Hi, my name is Jaron Fisher, and welcome to Open World, a show focused on video games, their creators, and communities around them. I really wanted to do this show after kind of several years of interviewing and talking to people who have had various hands in parts of video games, whether it been developers, people who are organizing communities, people who are creating music inspired by their favorite games, people who are trying to teach using games. And really thought there were some really fascinating stories and really liked the idea of talking directly to people and kind of getting their stories from their own mouths. There have been conversations I've enjoyed, and I really kind of hope that other people will enjoy them as well. It's been kind of a while getting this going, in part mostly on my own end, not me necessarily happy with figuring out the format and everything. It's still going to be a work in progress. Still don't know exactly what this is going to be 6 months from now, if this still maintains 6 months from now. But I at least wanted to finally just give it a go and just see what happens. Appropriately enough, first interview will be an interview from September 6, 2013 with three of the creators of Juegos Rancheros, Saltsman, Joe Lammert, and Wiley Wiggins. Juegos Rancheros is essentially a monthly gathering of people who just want to kind of get together, mingle, play different video games, and get exposed to different games, and just kind of be in a shared community. Adam, Joe, and Wiley will do a much better job of actually describing it. And as a fact, the first question that I did wind up asking them starting off was, how did Juegos get started?
Well, 3 or 4 years ago, I had tried to informally organize some game developers to get together. It felt like the only time I ever got to see other people who made games was like at GDC or some other big conference, Indiecade maybe. And I wanted that here in Austin, and there are other cities that have this, like the Hand-Eye Society in Toronto, I'm forgetting a bunch of others, but Hand-Eye Society is a big inspiration for us. And I kind of failed at doing that, but in that same time period, Brandon Boyer moved here, who can't be here tonight, and started kind of organizing something a little bit simpler. Just go out to a bar once a week, game developers, and we'll just, actually not talk about games very much, but just kind of be there, keep each other company, and like talk about creative things, whatever. And that's kind of snowballed over the years into getting support from the Alamo and becoming kind of part of Fantastic Arcade during the fall especially, and now being hosted by the North Door. We do one big event every month pretty regularly. Last month we had like a planetarium set up inside and a live DJ, and we were playing this like ambient outer space game inside the planetarium live for people. We've also done workshops and some other things, but and planning on doing more stuff. But I think that's most of Juegos.
Yeah, so I got involved because, like Adam, I had tried to start something that failed. I tried to start a group called Austin Creative Code, which was ostensibly to teach artists computer languages, like open source stuff like processing or Arduino to help build installation art. And the artists that I brought on very quickly got super alienated by the really techie people who would show up and kind of like show off a whole bunch. So that kind of dissolved. And at that time, I kind of like realized that, well, actually, the place where sort of normal people access interactive art is games. And there's this like entire world of indie games that I kind of started getting access to. And that was when I met Brandon. And then Joe, you want to talk about how you got involved?
And I came on just a couple years ago, actually. Well, I just started to go to Juegos a couple years ago. I helped form this indie studio in Austin, White Whale Games, and we were just scrappy idiots when we started. And so we were like, "Oh, Juegos Rancheros, that seems like something we should do." And it just, was a welcoming experience, but also like ridiculously insightful and really helpful for everything that we did as an indie studio. And so I guess over the year, I kind of tried to dig my hands a little bit more into Juegos and like be like, how can I help? What can I do? And so from there, just like this past year, I officially got thrown on too as an operator. And so, I just kind of do every little thing I can too to, help out and help keep us going and doing lots of really cool, interesting stuff.
But like one of the things that Adam touched on, I think that is maybe kind of very central to our like, mission objective is that, there's been a lot of big studios in Austin. And so there's a lot of skill in Austin, but a lot of it is just kind of always being put to somebody else's purposes. And we've always, that the kind of like scales of fate tip one way or another when you're working for somebody else, as they do when you work for yourself. But we've always kind of thought like all of these skilled people should give making a passion project a go. And we want to be here to help them facilitate that, and help them, get brave and just try and make their own project that they always wanted to make. So it's been really exciting to be a part of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy if you guys will probably see shots of Banner Saga later, or people have seen it online, but like Arnie was the artist on Banner Saga was like the lead artist on like the crazy giant Star Wars MMO they made up at BioWare. And like I am 100% certain he did like mind-blowing amazing work up there, but seeing what he's doing on his passion project right now is insane. Like I've never seen anything like it it's not like it looks good for a game. Like I've never seen 2D art. Yeah. And I think that's a lot harder to do in the confines of something where risk is a bigger problem.
Right. When you get that kind of talent and you don't involve a bunch of marketing people and lawyers, like it's amazing what can happen. And you just want to like grab people that are caught in this meat grinder and be like, you can do anything. Like do it. Just take, a year and do it. And so I feel like it's kind of happening, and I think it's been incredibly healthy for this town and for the scene. So,
what has been the experience since starting Juegos and kind of watching things grow? What have been some of the surprises you've seen in kind of bringing the community together? What are still some of the problems that you kind of think that the community can tackle?
I mean, the thing that I've loved seeing is like weird, unplanned cross-studio collaboration where like artists from White Whale are now doing art for Tiger Style, and Gleek, the local sound studio, is suddenly doing a bunch of sound for other people's games, and former AAA studio guys do programming for Gleek now, and like there's lots of very good commingling of things going on, which I think is super positive.
There's a lot less like legal barriers to that kind of cross-talk when you're not dealing with a bunch of giant like entities with NDAs and stuff. So yeah, like Adam has helped do some art on my game, and like George from White Whale has helped do some writing, and it's just it's just like a culture of collaboration, which is what we started out wanting to foment.
I think that's kind of like the big thing that like makes kind of the Austin indie scene just like, I think a lot of people outside of it are like, well, what's going on over there? Why aren't they like competing and getting like really nasty with you? Why are they like actually like sharing their ideas and doing that? I don't understand, but that's kind of how like these really cool things are getting built. God of Blades, like one of the sound designers from Cleek did sound design for us back when we were so insanely scrappy that we were like, well, we can't afford good sound design, and we like the sounds in God of Blades are amazing. Like they're beautiful, and that would not have happened if like we weren't in Austin, honestly, probably not. So I think that's kind of like the coolest thing. And also I will also say the other thing that was like has been really cool is like when we did Nation of Indies back in like, what was that, like February or something like that, after Junction Point had layoffs, like that. So it was a free event, but the RSVPs filled up insanely fast, like the 100 spots, and we had like this huge wait list of like, twice the size of the space already. So that was maybe not surprising, but like kind of validates that like the stuff that we do, like that it is very important for the scene, and that we need to continue doing stuff like that. So
about specific difficulties, because like our mission has been super simple so far, right? Which is just like find cool things, put them in a place where people can go see them for free, and like gain a new love and appreciation of the art that we think is cool and that maybe people don't know about. So like we really specifically curate for games that you can just pick up. So I'm gonna be like, here's the thing, press the buttons. This is going to make your life better.
So maybe discovery.
Yeah. I feel like that's been our mission for a while, and like we've got a really good thing going with that. And so I think like the thing that's going to be tricky to figure out is kind of like, well, what to do next? Because I think almost everybody involved wants to do more stuff, and we're not really sure what form that actually takes. I know like we don't do a lot of work with students, which we've like sort of started like, you know, thinking about, and we visited some classrooms, but we haven't actually like really done anything yet. And I think more things like Nation of Indies that are specifically targeting AAA studios and trying to get people to take really crazy dumb risks and go make something beautiful. I think that's something that I'd like to do more of, probably.
Lurks around. I'd also like, I was just going to say too, I think another challenge just for me, like as a starting on as an operator too, and really trying to build the community here, like trying to encourage like new people to come to Juegos. Sometimes I've found like when I've talked to people, you know, I hang out in a lot of different communities or outside of gaming, and I'll be like, oh hey, you should come to Juegos Rancheros. It's this indie video game thing, and immediately like a lot of times I'll hear like, oh, I don't play video games, and it's just like, well, you should still come, because there's like I think there's kind of this preconceived idea of a lot of things about what video games are and like what a video game community looks like, and so I get that reaction a lot of times, or I have previously. I actually feel like now I've gotten that less. I've kind of framed like a lot of times, especially people who just have no idea what indie games are, I kind of frame it more as like a, hey, well, it's like a new media thing. Come see beautiful things and drink and meet cool people, and I think in turn that has actually brought like a lot of really cool people here that might not necessarily plan on coming to a venue and playing games and drinking, but then sure enough, like 10 minutes in, they're like playing something like Star Wars, which is like really accessible to basically anybody. It's 2 buttons and having a really good time.
Well, we had like the Alamo originally, Juegos Rancheros every month, our monthly meetups were done at the Highball before the Highball was like a smoldering crater on South Lammert. And the Alamo basically gave us that space to just say you get 2 hours once a month, like, or 3 or 4 hours, I don't remember what it was, 2 or 3 hours. You know, go nuts, do whatever you want in here. And so we had a few meetups and everything was going well. And
Sundays at 4 o'clock.
Yeah, it was actually going okay in spite of the primo time slot, right? But you know, one afternoon we were getting everything set up, and we were going to do a game of Johann Sebastian Joust that afternoon, which is everybody gets a move controller, and it's kind of like this old folk game about knocking lemons off of spoons, and it's this like physical kind of like freeze taggy like game, and all the waitresses, like really hip, like Alamo waitresses, were like leaning on the bar, going like, "Oh, it's nerd night again. Oh, here come the nerds." And like 30 minutes later, all of them are playing Joust, like out in the middle and like yelling at each other and like having a really good time. So like, I mean, that's definitely our core mission, and figuring out how to do more of that, how to do that better, how to keep reaching the other creative communities in Austin, how to keep reaching normal people, how to keep reaching, you know, people who maybe have crazy skills that they're not putting to maximum use yet.
Yeah, I mean, generally, if people have a problem with video game culture, which there's tons of valid reasons to have problems with video game culture, it's not worth dismissing the entire medium, considering it's a superset of every other form of art that in existence. Like, make your own games if you're unhappy with the way games are going and the kind of people who play games. It's too big of an opportunity to miss, and so.
Speaking of opportunities and speaking of somebody coming together, I remember actually being at Highball last year when the initiative was kind of announced and pulled together Texas Shop. Unfortunately, the unit was actually placed somewhere April this year, was it?
Yeah, so we just placed a permanent Texatron over at Guzu Gallery, which is a kind of like art gallery that caters to sort of like, new art, outsider art, comics, toys, designer toys, stuff like that. So that's been a really cool thing that we're doing. One of the whole things about like Wagos growing up is we're now able to do fundraisers and stuff, and I think one of our main intentions is definitely to look at the Texatron and to get it to grow up and get it to feature Texas artists first and foremost, and have that be one of our first goals.
And how's that coming along? Since are you still doing
It's going good. We haven't really started our big second drive yet. In case you don't know what the Texatron is, in case people don't know, there's a system in existence called the Winatron from our good friends in Winnipeg that basically is based on the Torontron, which is even more difficult to say. And this is basically an old school arcade cabinet, very much like what we do at Fantastic Arcade, that has it's network connected, and it downloads independently made games that are then free to play in this sort of arcade context, which is like super approachable to people at bars or bookstores or what have you. And they've got an existing system where like anybody can build one of these. It's an open system. You have to display it publicly. You can't like own it as an individual. So we decided that we really wanted something like this in Texas. So we sort of created a couple, tapped into it, and that's sort of been this like outreach kind of thing that we send out into the world as both, to proselytize Juegos Rancheros and Fantastic Arcade, because we have them at Fantastic Arcade frequently too. Do you guys want to talk about like what we want to do with that next, or?
I talk a little Texatron is it's kind of like our like discovery mission. It's like, hey, okay, you guys don't even have to come to Juegos Rancheros. Just like show up at a place, and maybe that we'll have already brought games there. So we definitely in all of our few little scraps of things that resemble like organizational documents, aka like Gmail threads. The Texatron has always been referred to as Texatron 1. We definitely want to build more. Again, just to have them exist in more places and have these games. Like most of the games that are on the Texatron, not only are they these Winatron Network games, they're Winatron Network exclusives. Like you can't get them anywhere else. So they're like it's kind of a special cabinet. We're working with a couple of people to try and revamp it to give local installations more input. So there could when you go up to Guzu Gallery and you see the Texatron there, you could see like games from Austin, games from Texas, games from around the world, and you would have like a little bit of granularity. That's something I think we can do and is going to be really, really good. And Texatron is only possible basically because of Joshua Fields, who was the proprietor of Einstein's Arcade down on the Strip for
all through the late 90s.
Yeah, so he works really, really hard on Fantastic Arcade to build all the custom cabinets, and he was really crucial to getting the Texatron installed.
And Joshua actually helped curate the games with us for the first time this year too. So he's whether he knows it or not, he's a ranchero.
Yeah.
And I guess when I close out this kind of asking, what are you seeing as the future of Juegos Rancheros? What are you hoping to have Juegos Rancheros accomplish?
I definitely don't, very much like a Fantastic Arcade, I don't want either one of them to grow out of control. I think that one of the problems with games being a really kind of an immature media is that there's this notion of like, oh, games, that's this like monolithic thing. You like games, then you must like all games, and you must like all like game companies and the game industry. And you're a gamer. You're a dirty gamer. So, I mean, like, our intention has always been, like, listen, this is the established dominant form of culture right now. We don't need to justify it anymore. We don't need to feel bad about it. All we need to do is stake out our little corner of it and try and promote the things that we find to be beautiful, regardless of the fact that they're games. I mean, these are art, they're cinema in a way, they're music, and these are the things that, regardless of whether they were interactive or not, I mean, certainly the interactivity is awesome. These are the things that we think are beautiful and that we love. And to keep that curation tight, even though we make it super accessible and expose more people to it.
Yeah, it's really about having the opportunity either once a month or once a year, depending on the scale, to be able to go through and pick out, like really confidently, happily pick out pieces of art that are just as like, everybody's a normal human, and like we have a limited amount of time, and then we're dead, and we get to choose what we do between now and then. And a lot of the time, you're kind of hard pressed if you're like, well, I could go to this amazing concert, or I could go see this amazing movie, or I could go see this amazing theatrical performance, or I could play a video game. Like, we get the opportunity to go through and find the games that we think stand up next to all of those as like really good things to do with yourself before you die. Like, everything in Fantastic Arcade is completely worth spending like 2 or 3 hours with between now and not being alive anymore. And like, but there's not that many. Like, there's a lot of video games, and like everything else, there's a lot of movies that probably you shouldn't do that with. And so I think a lot of people see the games that maybe you shouldn't do that with. And because of that,
900 hours of gameplay too.
Yeah, and people see that and they miss all these other beautiful things that they could be spending time with.
Right. Yeah, I think for me, like, what I'd really love to see over the next year, the next 2 years, 3 years, whatever. I mean, I'm just really excited to see kind of the different audience that keeps coming to Wagos. I think it has changed a little bit already in the past like couple years. I think for some people, there's kind of been previously maybe sometimes like a preconceived notion that it's like, oh, that's a game developer hangout. And it's like, no, this isn't a game dev hangout. Like, there might be some game developers hanging out, but this is for anybody who is remotely interested in just seeing some beautiful pieces of art, playing some games, drinking, meeting interesting people. And I think, I mean, like, every single time, like, we send out an invite for Juegos Rancheros, like, I look at the invite and I'm just like, oh, I don't know half these people. I wonder how they heard about Wagos and what their story is going to be. So I'm really excited to see more, just kind of this very kind of eclectic group of people building. And I think we're also really eager to like we had said earlier, do a little bit more outreach, like maybe within talking to having workshops still similar to Nation of Indies, and also having workshops with high schoolers or middle schoolers and stuff like that. And so that's definitely a big goal. But yeah, like Wiley said, I think just like we don't want to become this like behemoth thing that like we have no control over. But fortunately, like I think the tight circle of Juegos Rancheros people like are all like really ridiculously helpful. And I think we've been able to, like, for example, Nation of Indies was literally formed because of like 500 emails, like literally
3 days.
Yeah, like a 500 email thread that just started with like, oh man, it's upsetting that all these studios are getting laid off. And then there's a lot of people within this community that are very eager to help this community, Wagos. And so, so that's what I'm really excited about.
I think that might be a good place, like, to end this even. Joe brought up something that I don't know if we made clear earlier. Like, Wagos came from people who make things wanting to get together with other people who make things, but this event is just like one thing that like all of us got to do. Like, hey, we all make things. You know what we should do is show beautiful things to people, and that's what this event is. And like that's kind of what Fantastic Arcade is to some extent. And I think
it's also it's like showing beautiful things to people. And it's like if you're interested in making these beautiful things, we can also all talk, and maybe we can help you with like resources or whatever. But also, if you just want to play and hang out, that's fantastic.
Thanks for checking out the interview. Thanks for Joe, Wiley, and Adam for taking their time and talking about this. This was only part of that interview. There's another part that's very focused on Fantastic Arcade, a indie game festival that accompanies Fantastic Fest, an indie movie festival here in Austin in the fall. And I'll probably pull that in and do something with that a little closer to when Fantastic Arcade starts to hit this year. But again, thanks so much for your time. Hopefully you enjoyed. Please leave feedback. I would love to hear back from anyone on what they liked, what they didn't like, and most importantly, just enjoy your world. Take care.